The sun beat down on Los Santos. It was another beautiful day in paradise. Palm trees swayed, waves crashed. The smell of weed and desperation hung in the air. Just another Tuesday in the sprawling metropolis where dreams went to die and criminals went to thrive. The endless summer sun glinted off the chrome of 1,000 customized cars, a kaleidoscope of wealth and questionable taste. The air buzzed with the relentless thrum of police sirens, a constant reminder that even in paradise, trouble always found a way. In the heart of this urban jungle, players logged into their GTA online sessions, ready for a day of digital mayhem and virtual fortune. Little did they know that this Tuesday would be anything but typical. This wasn't going to be another day of petty heists and souped-up sports cars. Fate, it seemed, had other plans. Plans that involved a whole lot of fire, a healthy dose of chaos, and a train full of unsuspecting passengers about to be caught in the crosshairs. The city, usually humming with the predictable rhythm of virtual chaos, held its breath. A storm was brewing, and it was about to unleash its fury on the unsuspecting commuters of the Los Santos transit system. Meet Digital Demon, a master hacker with a penchant for chaos. Don't let the pink hair fool you, she could crack the Pentagon servers. Then there was Nitro, the getaway driver extraordinaire. Next up, Raven, the Queen of Destruction. Finally, Big Popper, the strategist, the brains behind the operation. They were a motley crew, united by a shared love of mayhem. The Los Santos Express, a steel behemoth snaking its way across the virtual landscape, was a symbol of the city itself. In the cramped carriages, the usual cast of GTA Online characters went about their digital lives. Then it happened. A plume of black smoke erupted from the front of the train. The engine, once a symbol of power, was now a crucible of chaos, spewing flames and black smoke. Screams pierced the air, a chorus of terror echoing through the metal confines of the train. Digital Demon saw the plume of smoke first. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Information scrolled at a dizzying pace. "Well, this isn't good," she muttered. A challenge was always welcome. Nitro saw the smoke in his rearview mirror. He let out a low whistle. "Looks like things are about to get interesting." He slammed his foot on the accelerator. Raven in her bunker heard the news. She cracked a smile. "Time to paint the town red," she chuckled. Big Popper watched the drama on the news. He calmly took a sip of his drink. "Every problem is an opportunity," he murmured. He reached for his phone. The city was on fire, and it was time to clock in. It started like any other day in Los Santos. The sun beat down on the city's sprawling sprawl. Palm trees swayed lazily in the artificial breeze. The air crackled with the energy of 1,000 stories. Players navigated the digital landscape with precision. At Los Santos International Airport, jumbo jets roared overhead. Tourists gawked at supercars and gun-toting pedestrians. Street vendors hawked their wares, their carts overflowing. The Los Santos transit system ferried passengers across the city. The Los Santos Express was a marvel of modern engineering. Its sleek silver carriages promised a smooth journey. Inside, air-conditioned comfort awaited its passengers. The 10:15 express service was packed with commuters. Businessmen typed away on emails, their minds miles away. Students chatted amongst themselves, their voices a low hum. Others clutched their belongings, eyes darting nervously. Even in the relative safety of a moving train, danger was never too far behind. In the front carriage, Chloe, known as Digital Demon, stared out the window, deep in thought. She was a hacker extraordinaire, on her way to meet a shady client. A few rows behind, Marcus Nitro, a legendary getaway driver, checked his phone. He was planning a high-stakes heist. In the middle carriage, Raven, a demolitions expert, cleaned her nails with a switchblade. She was on her way to meet her crew for a casino heist. In the rear carriage, Big Popper, a fixer, read the Los Santos Times. He could make things happen with a phone call and a hefty sum of money. In Los Santos, it was best not to ask too many questions. Unbeknownst to the passengers on the Los Santos Express, a small error was about to have catastrophic consequences. A faulty sensor, a loose wire, a glitch in the system. The train's automated safety protocols were about to fail. Pressure began to build rapidly, like a virtual pressure cooker about to blow. The air conditioning sputtered and died, replaced by a stifling stillness. Heads turned, eyes darted around nervously. Digital Demon, her senses heightened, was the first to react. She glanced around, her gaze settling on the emergency intercom button. Nitro swore as his phone's signal dropped out. The heist was time-sensitive. He slammed his fist, frustration growing. The carriage was getting warm. Nitro scanned the faces of his fellow passengers. Raven cleaned her switchblade, oblivious to the tension. Big Popper calmly folded his newspaper. The smell of smoke intensified. Passengers coughed, eyes watering. The Los Santos Express was descending into chaos. The first screams erupted from the rear of the train, sharp and piercing. A plume of black smoke billowed through the carriages. The train was now a hurtling metal coffin. She slammed her fist against the emergency intercom button. "Fire! Everyone, stay calm and move to the front of the train." Passengers scrambled to their feet. Nitro pushed his way through the crowd. He had a bad feeling about this. This wasn't just a fire. It was an inferno. He needed to get everyone out fast. The engine car, once a testament to industrial might, was now a raging inferno. Flames, hungry and relentless, devoured everything in their path, twisting metal and spitting sparks like a mechanical dragon. The air, thick with the stench of burning oil and molten steel, crackled with an almost electrical intensity. The heat was unbearable, a physical force that pressed down on everything, suffocating, inescapable. Deep within the heart of the blaze, a pressure valve, weakened by years of neglect and unseen wear, finally gave way. The shriek of escaping steam, a banshee's wail against the roar of the fire, was the only warning before the explosion. It wasn't a massive explosion, not in the Hollywood sense of the word, but it was enough. Enough to rip through the already weakened structure of the engine car. Enough to send shrapnel tearing through the air with deadly velocity. Enough to turn a disaster into a catastrophe. The shockwave hit the following carriages like an invisible fist, tossing passengers against walls and sending luggage flying. Screams, amplified by the confined space, echoed through the train, a chorus of terror and confusion. The lights flickered once, twice, then died, plunging the interior into darkness, broken only by the flickering glow of the fire raging at the front of the train. In the sudden, terrifying darkness, chaos reigned. The Los Santos Express, once a symbol of the city's interconnectedness, was now a steel coffin, hurtling blindly through the virtual landscape, its passengers trapped within its fiery belly. Panic spread through the carriages like a virus. People clawed at windows, desperate for escape. Their screams swallowed by the roar of the fire and the screech of metal on metal. Digital Demon fought her way through the panicked crowd. She had to get to a working communication system, had to get a message out. But the train's intercom system was dead and her phone was useless. Nitro felt a surge of adrenaline, not of excitement, but of pure fear. He had cheated death countless times in the virtual world, but this was different. This was real fear. He had to get out, had to find a way to survive. Raven, her face illuminated by the flames, laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. This was it, the end game. She had always known it would end like this, in a blaze of glory. She closed her eyes, a strange sense of peace washing over her. If this was the end, she would meet it head-on. Big Popper, his face illuminated by the glow of his cigar, surveyed the chaos with a detached curiosity. Panic, he had always believed, was a useless emotion, a waste of precious time and energy. He took a long, slow drag from his cigar, savoring the familiar taste of tobacco and ash. He had survived worse, and he would survive this too. He just needed to find a way to turn the situation to his advantage. It was every player for themselves. We have to work together, Digital Demon shouted, her voice barely audible above the roar of the fire. If we don't, we're all gonna die. She knew it was a long shot. In the virtual world of Los Santos, cooperation wasn't exactly a common commodity, but they were running out of time, and desperate times called for desperate measures. To her surprise, someone responded. It was Big Papa, his voice calm and steady amidst the chaos. She's right, he said, his words carrying a strange authority. Panic will get us nowhere. We need to think clearly if we want to survive this. Digital Demon, her heart lifted by this unexpected ally, pushed her way through the crowd towards Big Papa. We need to find a way to slow down the train, she shouted, her voice competing with the roar of the fire. If we can get it to stop, we might be able to get out. Big Papa nodded, his eyes scanning the carriage, taking in every detail. There's a manual override at the back of the train, he said, pointing towards a steel door at the rear of the carriage. If we can get there, we might be able to stop this thing. Digital Demon didn't hesitate. Nitro! Raven! With me! She shouted, her voice echoing through the smoke-filled carriage. The three unlikely heroes, their paths converging in the heart of the inferno, exchanged a look. It was a long shot, a suicide mission almost, but it was their only shot. Nitro, his massive frame a reassuring presence in the chaos, didn't need to be asked twice. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and charged towards the rear of the carriage, blasting a path through the panicked crowd, his eyes fixed on the steel door. The air was thick with smoke, making it difficult to breathe, but he pushed on, his lungs burning, his heart pounding against his ribs. He reached the door and slammed his shoulder against it, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked, bolted from the other side. He swore under his breath. They were running out of time. The fire was getting closer, the heat growing more intense with every passing second. He glanced back at Digital Demon and Raven, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. They had to get through that door. It was their only chance. "I need a hand here," he shouted, his voice hoarse from the smoke. Raven, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of fear and excitement, grinned wickedly. "Stand back," she said, her voice barely a whisper. She pulled a small black cylinder from her pocket and tossed it towards the door. "Fire in the hole!" The explosion, though small, was enough to blow the door off its hinges, sending it crashing to the floor with a deafening clang. Nitro, his ears ringing, coughed and waved away the smoke, his eyes stinging from the fumes. "Nice work, Raven," Digital Demon shouted, her voice laced with adrenaline. "Now let's move it!" She ducked through the open doorway, followed closely by Nitro and Raven. They found themselves in a narrow corridor, the air thick with smoke. Emergency lights flickered erratically. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. "Which way?" Nitro shouted. "This way," Big Papa's voice called out. He stood next to a steel door. "The manual override is through here." They sprinted down the corridor. They reached the door, and Big Papa pulled it open. Inside, a small, cramped control room awaited them. In the center of the room, a large red lever beckoned. "There it is," Digital Demon said. "The manual override. If we can pull that lever, we might be able to slow down the train." But as they surged forward, a figure emerged, blocking their path. He was tall and wiry, his face hidden behind a ski mask, a sawn-off shotgun clutched in his gloved hands. "Hold it right there," he snarled. The air in the cramped control room crackled with tension. The flickering red light cast long, distorted shadows on the walls, amplifying the sense of danger. The hijacker, his face hidden behind a black ski mask, stood between them and the manual override, his shotgun held loosely in his gloved hands, a silent threat in the confined space. Digital Demon stared at the man, her mind racing. Who was this guy, and why would he want to stop them from stopping the train? The questions swirled in her head, but there was no time for answers, not now. Not with the fire raging closer and the lives of countless passengers hanging in the balance. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice surprisingly steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "And what do you want?" The hijacker chuckled, a low, menacing sound that sent shivers down her spine. "You can call me Joker," he said, his voice distorted by the mask, making it impossible to determine his age or accent. "And as for what I want, let's just say I have a little score to settle with this city." Joker gestured with his shotgun towards the burning city visible through the windshield. The flames of the Los Santos Express were now a beacon, reflecting in the glassy surfaces of skyscrapers, casting an eerie orange glow on the chaos unfolding below. Sirens wailed in the distance, a symphony of urgency and despair, but they seemed miles away, irrelevant to their predicament. Digital Demon exchanged a nervous glance with Nitro and Raven. They were outmatched, outgunned, and running out of time. The heat from the fire was getting unbearable, the air thick with smoke, making it difficult to breathe. The floor vibrated with the increasing ferocity of the inferno, a constant reminder of their impending doom. "Look," Digital Demon said, her voice calm and measured, trying to buy some time, trying to figure a way out of this impossible situation. "Whatever it is you're trying to do, we can help you. Just let us stop this train. There are innocent people on board." Joker laughed, a harsh grating sound that echoed in the confined space. "Innocent? There's no such thing in this city. They're all complicit, all part of the system that screwed me over." He shook his head, his voice laced with a bitter rage. "No, this train's going down, and they're all coming down with it." Nitro, his patience wearing thin, cracked his knuckles. He had dealt with enough psychos in his time to recognize one when he saw one. This Joker character was bad news, and talking wasn't going to solve anything. He needed to act, needed to neutralize the threat before it was too late. Raven, her eyes gleaming with a dangerous light, seemed to relish the escalating tension. This was more like it, the kind of high-stakes chaos she thrived on. She casually leaned against a wall, her arms crossed, watching the exchange between Digital Demon and Joker with an almost predatory curiosity. Big Popper, his face impassive, stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. "There's always another way," he said, his eyes fixed on Joker. "Revenge is a dish best served cold, as they say. Blowing up a train full of people won't bring back what you've lost." Joker hesitated, his grip on the shotgun tightening. Big Popper's words seemed to have struck a nerve, momentarily disrupting his facade of manic glee. He glanced back at the burning city, then back at the group. His eyes narrowed behind the ski mask. Digital Demon seized the opportunity. "He's right," she said, her voice firm but non-threatening. "We've all lost something in this city. We've all been screwed over. But that doesn't mean we have to resort to this." Joker lowered the shotgun slightly, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He seemed torn, caught between his desire for revenge and the realization that his plan was spiraling out of control. But before anyone could say another word, a deafening screech of metal on metal ripped through the air, shaking the control room violently. The train lurched violently, throwing everyone off their feet. "What the hell was that?" Nitro roared, scrambling to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest. "We're derailed!" Raven shouted, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. "The tracks are gone!" The control room, once a haven of safety, was now a cage rattling along a path of destruction. The lights flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The smell of burning metal and electrical fire choked the air. Joker stumbled towards the windshield, eyes wide with fear. The train careened off the tracks, metal grinding against concrete. Below, the city stretched out, emergency lights flickering. "We're going to die!" he screamed, his voice cracking with terror. Digital Demon knew this was it, their final moment. She closed her eyes, bracing for impact, peace washing over her. She had lived on the edge, but this wasn't how she envisioned it ending. Nitro roared in defiance, a primal scream against fate. He had cheated death countless times, but now luck had run out. Raven, pale but serene, met Digital Demon's gaze. "Well," she said, a hint of a smile on her lips, "this is going to leave a mark." Section 5 out of the frying pan, and then just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The train, with a final bone-jarring shudder, came to a halt. its mangled remains resting precariously on the edge of the elevated rail system, the nose of the lead carriage dangling over the street below. The silence, broken only by the crackling of flames and the distant wail of sirens, was deafening. Digital Demon, her senses still reeling from the sudden stop, slowly opened her eyes. She was alive. They were alive. She looked around the control room, her gaze settling on Nitro, Raven, and Big Papa, their faces illuminated by the flickering emergency lights. They were bruised, battered, but alive. Joker, however, was gone. "Where is he?" Nitro growled, his voice hoarse, his eyes scanning the wrecked control room. "Where'd that son of a bitch go?" Raven, ever observant, pointed towards a shattered window at the back of the control room. "Looks like someone took the express route out of here," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. Digital Demon rushed to the window, peering out into the night. Below them, the city stretched out like a glittering tapestry of lights, the chaos of the derailed train, a distant spectacle from this vantage point, but there was no sign of Joker. He had vanished into the urban jungle, leaving behind nothing but destruction and a lingering sense of unease. Section 6. A City on Hold. News of the Los Santos Express incident, as it quickly became known, spread like wildfire through the virtual city and the real world beyond. Gamers glued to their screens watched in awe and horror as live feeds captured the dramatic footage of the derailed train, its mangled remains a testament to the chaos that had unfolded. On social media, hashtags like #ElstExpress, #Los Santos Inferno, and #TrainWreckTuesday trended worldwide as players and spectators alike shared their reactions, theories, and virtual condolences. The Los Santos authorities, both virtual and real, faced a barrage of questions about security protocols, emergency response times, and the possibility of foul play. The incident sparked a heated debate about the role of violence and realism in video games, with some calling for increased regulation and others defending the right to virtual mayhem. But amidst the chaos and controversy, a different kind of story was unfolding, a story of courage, camaraderie, and the enduring human spirit, even in the face of virtual adversity. The story of how a group of unlikely heroes, thrown together by circumstance and united by a common purpose, had faced their fears, overcome impossible odds, and lived to tell the tale. The story of the day the Los Santos train caught fire. Section 1. A Leap of Faith. The control room, perched precariously on the edge of the shattered rail system, offered no escape. The rear carriages were engulfed in flames, a roaring inferno fueled by twisted metal and shattered dreams. The only way out was forward, across the chasm of broken tracks and dangling wires. Digital Demon, her heart pounding, stared into the abyss. The drop to the street below seemed impossibly far. She had always been fearless in the virtual world, but this was different. This was real fear, the kind that made her knees weak. "We can't stay here," Nitro growled. The heat from the fire was becoming unbearable. "We have to move, now!" Raven, ever the daredevil, didn't hesitate. She took a running leap, her purple hair flying behind her. She landed nimbly on the roof of the next carriage. "Come on, slowpokes!" she shouted. "Unless you want to be virtual barbecue." Digital Demon took a deep breath, steeling her nerves. She had faced down virtual armies and outrun digital explosions. Surely she could handle a little jump. Nitro, his massive frame a reassuring presence beside her, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't look down," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Just focus on me, we'll make it." Digital Demon nodded, her fear momentarily forgotten in the face of his unwavering confidence. She took a running jump, her hand reaching out, grasping for his outstretched hand. She felt his strong grip close around hers, pulling her forward across the chasm towards safety. They landed on the roof of the next carriage, stumbling but safe. The metal surface was hot to the touch, the air thick with smoke, but it was a haven compared to the inferno raging behind them. Big Papa, his face pale but composed, followed close behind, his movements surprisingly agile for a man of his age and stature. He landed beside them, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Well," he said, wiping sweat from his brow, "that was invigorating." The roof of the train was a treacherous landscape of twisted metal, broken glass and dangling wires, illuminated by the flickering flames of the inferno behind them and the flashing lights of emergency vehicles gathering on the street below. But it was their only path to safety. They moved quickly, their movements a desperate dance between survival and disaster. Nitro, his strength amplified by adrenaline, ripped open a hatch leading to the interior of the carriage, creating a makeshift escape route. They dropped down into the darkened carriage, their eyes struggling to adjust to the dim light filtering through the smoke-filled windows. The air was thick with the stench of burning upholstery and the acrid tang of fear. But amidst the chaos, a flicker of hope emerged. A small group of passengers, huddled together at the far end of the carriage, looked up in surprise as the four unlikely heroes emerged from the shadows. "It's okay," Digital Demon said, her voice calm and reassuring despite the tremor in her own heart. "We're here to help. We're going to get you out of here." The passengers, their faces a mixture of fear and relief, surged towards them, their voices a cacophony of questions and pleas for help. Among the terrified passengers, Digital Demon recognized a familiar face. It was Chloe, a young woman she often saw on the forums, a fellow hacker who went by the handle Sparky. "Sparky?" Digital Demon said, her voice laced with surprise. "What are you doing here?" Chloe, her eyes wide with fear, rushed towards her, throwing her arms around her. "Digital Demon, thank God you're here. I thought I was a goner." Digital Demon returned the hug, feeling a surge of protectiveness for the younger woman. "It's okay, Sparky," she said, her voice soothing. "We're going to get you out of this." She turned to the other passengers, her gaze taking in their terrified faces, their desperate eyes. There were businessmen in crumpled suits, their faces pale with shock. There were tourists, their vacation souvenirs scattered around them, their eyes wide with fear. And there were ordinary people just trying to get home, caught in a nightmare not of their making. "We need to work together," Digital Demon said, her voice firm but compassionate. "If we panic, we'll never get out of here alive." Her words, a beacon of hope in the darkness, had an almost immediate calming effect. The passengers, their initial fear replaced by a desperate desire to survive, nodded their agreement. Big Popper, ever the pragmatist, took charge. "We need to find a way to signal for help," he said, his voice calm and authoritative. "Does anyone have a working phone?" A chorus of no's filled the carriage. The fire that had engulfed the rear carriages had taken out the train's communication systems, and most of the passengers' phones were either lost, damaged, or out of battery. "Wait," Sparky said, her voice trembling with excitement. "I might have something." She rummaged through her backpack, her fingers fumbling with the zipper. "I brought my signal flare," she said, holding up a small cylindrical device. "I use it for geocaching." Digital Demon's eyes widened. "Sparky, you're a lifesaver!" Sparky, her face flushed with a mixture of fear and pride, grinned. "It's just a hobby," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Nitro, ever resourceful, grabbed the flare from Sparky's hand. "I'll take care of this," he said, his voice gruff but reassuring. He climbed onto a seat, his massive frame dwarfing the small space. He carefully aimed the flare out of a broken window towards the night sky. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, his finger depressing the trigger. A brilliant red flare shot into the night sky, a beacon of hope piercing the darkness. It arced gracefully over the cityscape, a fiery streak against the backdrop of twinkling lights and the distant glow of the burning train carriages. Below, on the street, chaos reigned. Emergency vehicles, their sirens wailing, struggled to navigate the gridlocked traffic. Firefighters battled the blaze, their hoses spewing jets of water that seemed pitiful against the inferno's fury. Police officers, their faces grim, tried to establish a perimeter, their shouts drowned out by the roar of the fire and the cacophony of the city. And then they saw it. The flare, a single point of light in the darkness, caught the attention of a news helicopter hovering nearby. Its powerful spotlight swung towards the source, illuminating the wrecked train carriages, the terrified faces of the trapped passengers, and the four unlikely heroes who had brought them together in their darkest hour. The helicopter pilot, his voice crackling over the radio, confirmed their location. "We have eyes on the train. We see survivors. We're coming to get you." Hope, fragile but real, blossomed in the hearts of the trapped passengers. They were not forgotten. They were not alone. Help was on its way. But as the helicopter descended towards them, a new threat emerged from the shadows, a threat that would test their newfound unity, their courage, and their very humanity. The roar of the approaching helicopter blades echoed through the shattered remains of the Los Santos Express, a symphony of hope amidst the cacophony of chaos. The trapped passengers, their faces illuminated by the flickering emergency lights and the approaching spotlight, erupted in cheers, their relief tangible, almost palpable. Digital Demon, her heart pounding in her chest, felt a surge of gratitude wash over her. They were going to make it. They were actually going to make it out of this inferno alive. She glanced at Nitro Raven and Big Popper, their faces etched with exhaustion but their spirits unbroken. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, a testament to their unique brand of virtual heroism. But as the helicopter maneuvered closer, its powerful searchlight cutting through the smoke and darkness, a figure emerged from the shadows of a nearby building. A rocket launcher perched menacingly on his shoulder. "Oh, hell no!" Nitro roared, his voice a mixture of disbelief and fury. "Not this again!" The figure, silhouetted against the city lights, took aim, his finger tightening on the trigger. The helicopter pilot, his voice a panicked squawk over the radio, swore loudly as he saw the imminent threat. "We have a hostile, I repeat, we have a hostile with a rocket launcher." Time seemed to slow to a crawl as the rocket, trailing a fiery tail of smoke and sparks, hurtled towards the vulnerable helicopter. The trapped passengers, their cheers turning to screams of terror, braced for impact, their newfound hope extinguished before it could fully ignite. Digital Demon, her mind racing, knew they had mere seconds to act, seconds to avert another catastrophe in this night of endless chaos. She glanced around frantically, her eyes searching for a weapon, a tool, anything that could help them survive this latest twist of fate, but there was nothing but their wits, their courage, and a desperate hope that somehow, some way, they could cheat death once again. "We need to take him out!" Raven shouted, her voice barely audible above the roar of the approaching rocket and the terrified screams of the passengers. "Easier said than done," Nitro growled, his massive frame shielding Digital Demon from the potential blast. "The guy's got a rocket launcher and we've got..." He glanced around the wrecked carriage, his eyes falling on a pile of debris. A whole lot of useless junk. Big Popper, ever the strategist, his face calm amidst the chaos, placed a hand on Nitro's shoulder. "Not junk, my friend," he said, his voice a low murmur in the deafening cacophony. "Improvised weaponry. We just need to get creative." Digital Demon, her eyes widening in realization, suddenly understood. "Sparky!" she shouted, her voice laced with urgency. "Your flare gun! Do you have any more flares?" Sparky, her face pale but determined, rummaged through her backpack, her fingers trembling with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. I think I have one left," she stammered, pulling out a single red cylinder. Digital Demon snatched the flare from Sparky's hand and tossed it to Nitro. "Think you can hit a moving target with that, big guy?" she asked, her voice a mixture of hope and desperation. Nitro grinned, a feral gleam in his eyes. "Honey, I was born for this," he said, his voice laced with a dangerous confidence. He hefted the flare gun in his hand, his eyes narrowing as he sighted down the barrel. He took a deep breath, calming his nerves, slowing his heart rate, entering that zen-like state he often found himself in during high-stakes heists and death-defying car chases. He waited for the perfect moment, for the rocket to reach the apex of its trajectory, for the figure with the launcher to become a clear target against the backdrop of city lights. "This is for the Los Santos Express," he muttered under his breath, his finger tightening on the trigger. He squeezed. The flare, a crimson streak of fire and fury, shot from the muzzle of the gun, arcing through the air with deadly accuracy. It struck the rocket launcher in a blinding explosion, detonating the projectile harmlessly in the air above the terrified passengers. The news helicopter, its rotors screaming, narrowly avoided the fiery debris. Below, chaos erupted as police and firefighters scrambled for cover. Digital Demon, her knees weak with relief, slumped against a wall. She looked at Nitro, Raven and Big Popper, knowing their lives had changed. They had faced death together and emerged as unlikely heroes. But their adventure wasn't over yet. The city of Los Santos had more in store. Digital Demon, Nitro, Raven and Big Popper were just getting started. The Los Santos Express incident sparked media scrutiny and online speculation. Digital Demon, Nitro, Raven and Big Popper were hailed as heroes by some, condemned as vigilantes by others. News vans camped outside their virtual safe houses. Talk show hosts dissected their every move. The incident sparked a debate about virtual reality and digital freedom. Amidst the chaos, the heroes found solace in their shared experience. They emerged unbowed, their virtual lives intertwined. Nitro, once a virtual underworld force, embraced his newfound celebrity with pride. Raven reveled in her infamy, becoming a digital folk hero. Big Popper turned media attention into business opportunities. As the dust settled, they knew their lives had changed forever, tasting the rush of victory and the fragility of their digital existence. And they knew their adventures were far from over. Los Santos, a chaotic digital playground, beckoned them. New challenges awaited, new threats loomed. As the sun set over the virtual horizon, Digital Demon, Nitro, Raven and Big Popper stood together, their gazes drawn to the familiar skyline. "So," Nitro said, a mischievous glint in his eyes, "what are we waiting for? This city ain't gonna save itself." Raven, a wicked grin spreading across her face, cracked her knuckles. "I'm feeling lucky. Anyone up for a little mayhem?" Big Popper, a knowing smile playing on his lips, raised his glass. "To Los Santos," he murmured. "May its chaos never cease to entertain." Digital Demon, a surge of excitement coursing through her veins, nodded her agreement. "Let's do this," she said. And with that, the heroes turned their backs on the setting sun and stepped back into the digital fray. The legend of the Los Santos Express was over. But the legend of Digital Demon, Nitro, Raven and Big Popper was just beginning. Los Santos, brace yourselves. They're back.